Welcome back, folks. Another episode, Jamin's Daily. We got a great episode for you today. Some really good topics. I had so many topics that I had to eliminate some of them and choose from a good amount of topics to the best topics. So we're going to start it right off with your host, Jamin. Jamin's Daily. Brought to you by Sage Choice Insurance. I can give you the whole phone number, but you can just go to quotefromjamin.com and we'll take care of you folks. So let's go to our first. Our first topic is coming to us. I believe this maybe happened in London, or not in London, but in the UK perhaps, because this is the UK Mirror. And it says a wife, 24, fined for walking her husband, 40, on a leash like a dog to beat the lockdown curfew. You know, people are always going to find a way to cheat. The wife who had her husband on a leash told police officers she was walking her dog as she was questioned about why they were outside after coronavirus curfew. Now, let's look at all the different angles in which this is crazy, okay? One, there's a person walking another person like a dog. Crazy. But what's even more crazier than that, folks, is that there's coronavirus curfew. Okay? That's where it gets really crazy. Coronavirus curfew. Let's find out. What does that mean? It says here, let's scroll down. A couple in Canada, I was wrong, Canada, have been fined after police caught the wife walking her husband like a dog. What if the husband identifies as a dog? You know, can that be the case? I don't know. The woman, 24, was reportedly stopped while walking her 40-year-old spouse on a leash in Quebec. The province has imposed a nightly curfew in a bid to curb coronavirus infection rates. They're only allowed out to close their homes for limited reasons. They're only allowed out close to their homes for limited reasons between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m., such as exercising their pooch. You know what's funny is that I found it curious how coronavirus is this super deadly thing and you really shouldn't leave your house, but if you have a dog and you need to walk it, okay, you can go. Like, having a dog allows you to leave. But you're not supposed to leave because it's not safe. But if you have a dog and you need to walk it, it's okay. I don't know. This doesn't mesh in like logic for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. People are only allowed out close to their homes for limited reasons. A woman told the officer that she was just out walking her dog near the couple's home in the city of Shirebrook. Now, I have seen situations in which it's mostly in some kind of dominatrix funny gag situation where there is somebody walking another person like a dog with a leash. But if this lady was really, that seems like a pretty crappy way of trying to get around a curfew for the guy. For her spouse, who has to be on hands and knees, I guess. It's cold. In Quebec, in January, it's got to be freezing up there. The couple were stopped. Wait here. During Quebec's strict curfew, people are only allowed out of their homes for limited reasons, such as seeking medical help or walking their dog. So again, we're getting to the same situation. This question that I need to have answered is, you can leave your house for a medical emergency, or walking a dog. How is walking your dog on the same level as a medical emergency? Just seems ridiculous. It says here, okay, so we're getting into, maybe we might find the meat and bones of the story here. The woman, 24, and her partner, 40, tried to argue that they were not in breach of curfew rules. One of them had the other on a leash, and she said she was walking Miss Ray Revenair. She was taking her dog, pointing to her partner on a walk, as allowed under the exceptions provided by Quebec's premier under its curfew law. That seems like a clever way. Like if you just put somebody wears a collar or a collar that you can snap a leash on. And then when you see the cops coming up, you'd be like, snap it. Oh, I'm walking my dog. It seems like you're better off just having the dog with you. You know, the couple should just have a dog, a small dog that you can just carry. But you can be like, I'm walking it. Oh, man, it's so ridiculous. It says police told the local press that the couple was not cooperative. The force said the pair's dog walking excuse failed to justify their trip outside. Can you imagine having to, you got to now start justifying why you go outside in free countries, folks. They received fines. Totally. Okay, wait. So $1,546 Canadian dollars, which is 900 pounds, which, I don't know. That's a lot of dollars, too. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's hundreds of dollars. So that seems pretty crappy for them. But, you know, you shouldn't be walking your spouse. Get a dog. You know, what can you say? There's no really way around it in Quebec. Move to Texas, folks. Move to Texas. That's my only suggestion. Actually, don't. Don't come to Texas. Moving on. Matthew McConaughey. Now, this is something I talked to a good friend of mine, and you know, we're talking about politics and current events, all kinds of stuff. And one of the things I was telling him I'm concerned about is this whole like guilt by association, this whole like trying to tie people to other people. You know, this whole, and here is a prime example. You can't comment on something without then somebody trying to imply that you're part of it. So like if you have an opinion on X, Y, and Z, now all of a sudden you're either but depending on what your opinion is, you're either part of it or sympathetic to it or etc., etc. So here's Matthew McConaughey, uber famous actor, but he's always tried to maintain this kind of down home, country bumpkin kind of persona of sorts, right? So Matthew McConaughey, apparently, according to the Daily Beast, he's flirting with the alt-right darlings. And you may be asking, who are the alt-right darlings? Well, we're going to find out, because I'm sure this article is going to mention them by name. One of which is a man by the name of Jordan Peterson. So the Dallas Buyers Club actor who was promoting his book Green Lights most recently appeared on men's rights activists. Is Jordan Peterson a men's rights activist? This is the first time Jordan Peterson has been in the news. I've been aware of him for at least a year or two or longer. I have never heard of him described. I've never seen him described as a men's rights activist. So that's new. But apparently Matthew McConaughey went on Jordan Peterson's podcast this week, which is very courageous of Matthew McConaughey, because Jordan Peterson has been called a bunch of terrible things. But if you really hear what he says, he's really never said anything that's like, like patently objectable or, what's the word? Offensive, patently offensive. He's an intellectual. You should, if you're wondering, well, what does a men's rights activist talk about? Go to YouTube and watch Jordan Peterson's videos and find out for yourself. That's what curious people do, right? When you're curious about something, you look it up. When Matthew McConaughey's book Green Lights first debuted last fall, the memoir included an interesting acknowledgement in the back of the book McConaughey thanks Jordan Peterson, a controversial Canadian professor and public speaker who has risen to prominence by fear-mongering about political correctness on college campuses, advocating for men's rights, and battling a bill meant to protect trans and non-binary people. Peterson is just one of several controversial figures who have coalesced in the past few years within the so-called intellectual dark web, a lot that also includes podcaster Joe Rogan and conservative pundit Ben Shapiro, among others. But that moniker belays the true mundanity of these guys' belief system. Most of them largely spend their time complaining about anything that smacks of political correctness and waiting for the yet-to-be-seen Armageddon that cancel culture will surely one day usher in. The thing is, in these kinds of folks, here's me editorializing just a bit, is it, who wrote this article? Laura Bradley. We're going to have to, entertainment reporter. So, it's just my opinion that most people really don't jive well with cancel culture. Most people, if they were to actually listen to what Jordan Peterson says, you actually listen to what Ben Shapiro says, like their actual words, and the things that they say, not what other people say that they say, but if you listen to them and what they actually say, it's hard to get offended because they're very polite people. It's the people, the opposition to them, their actual enemies and critics would rather you not even listen to them. They would have you believe the things that they say about them, right? Isn't that the way to go? If you don't want people to listen to Ben Shapiro, if you don't want people to listen to Joe Rogan, you don't want people to listen to Jordan Peterson, you label them, create this narrative about them, and then people think that, and then many of them will just believe it. Will actually never tune in for themselves. And here I am. I'm doing a podcast. I don't want to be judged for what other people say I say. I want to be judged for what I actually say and what people hear me say. So, judge for yourself, folks. Don't let other people make the decision for you. For instance, let's go back. And we're going to see how Laura describes certain situations. And then we'll see if she's being intellectually honest. For instance, Peterson's name recognition skyrocketed in 2016 as he misrepresented and fought against Canada's C-16 bill, which aimed to enshrine protection for gender identity under Canada's Human Rights Act. Peterson claimed it was a totalitarian-oriented legislation that would make misgendering people punishable by law, a provision that was nowhere to be found in the actual legislation. He also stated in a video that he refused to use students and fellow professors' proper pronouns, deeming them compelled speech. And here's where we get to the meaning of words, folks. So what is a proper pronoun? I don't know. Is that an actual thing within language arts? Like proper pronouns are like people's names, right? Like Mr., Mrs., this and that. The thing is, and what Jordan Peterson's argument is that you can't compel people to say anything, which is how it's been, right? If somebody doesn't want to call you something, you can't then use the force of law to compel them to. That's never been. What other law compels you to have to say something? Like if you don't say it right, like there's no law. I can go and call anybody I want some bad word, and just refer to them as this bad word forever and ever. Every time I see them, I'm like, hey, bad word. I would probably get beat up at one point. But the thing is, that's not against the law, right? Or I can't be fined. But what Jordan Peterson was saying about in the situation, the C-16 bill in Canada, was that they were creating a situation in which if by some kind of conscious, what's the word? Conscientious objection, you continue to refer to a transgender female who wants to be referred to as they, as him or he, because you knew them for the last 20 years as John, and then now they want to be Joanna, and you just continue to call them John, whether you like it or not, whether you're being just a butthole. I mean, I would call people what they want to be called. That's what I do. But the fact of the matter is, you can't create laws to make people say things. It just doesn't work out. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But this is where how they always try to, so they're tying in. Where in the hell does Matthew McConaughey come into this? So he goes on to hit Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is many things other than just his one position on this situation about compelled speech. So what's a guy like Matthew McConaughey, an Oscar winner whose easygoing attitude has allowed his early career role catchphrase, all right, to follow him for decades, reading a twerp like that, that's kind of strange. Alas, it appears he decided that Peterson and his ilk they make some good points. I think they do, actually. This week, McConaughey appeared on Jordan Peterson's podcast, which we kind of got the impression, 4 or 5 paragraphs in? It says here, many of the things you said I had been thinking about, but I heard you putting them into words and context, and I was like, wow, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm trying to get to, McConaughey told Peterson. And a lot of it goes back to self-determination, which we've talked a lot about. Self-authoring. Oh, here it is. And they even have it embedded. Oh, no. How many people are going to watch this? You see a lot of those threads through my book. So McConaughey's like piggybacking. And he's just being a nice guy. He knows Peterson has a large following. Maybe in a different way. In a more folksy way. But a lot of what you've said gave me confidence to go, I'm going to put my story on paper. So I thank you for that. That's why I thank you in the back of the book. That's crazy. So Matthew McConaughey actually thanked Jordan Peterson on the back of his book. Did not know that. I'm just finding this out. Folks, I break news for myself when I do this podcast. In particular, McConaughey said he connected with Peterson's reminiscences on humility and vulnerability. Wow, how heavy. Yada, 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 yada. I want to get into, soon enough, McConaughey and Peterson were discussing cancel culture. There we go. And how imperfect people can still become sources, and how imperfect people can still become sources of creativity and enlightenment. That theme has permeated McConaughey's press tour. When I see someone like Louis C.K., for example, pillared terribly, I think, well, hey, he did some things that were unseemly, certainly even by my own standards, obviously, Peterson said. For those who need a refresher, that unseemly act would be that C.K., by his own admission, masturbated in front of women who never consented. So what do we make of that? Peterson continued. Well, there's plenty of people who do unseemly things, but very few of them are as masterful as comedian as Louis C.K. So do you want to lose him because he's flawed? Right, McConaughey. He probably said it like that too. He's like, right. It seems inappropriate because you'd lose everybody that way. And then we just have lost. That's not helpful. And he's right. You can't. This is a very biblical way of living, is that you were all flawed. We all fall short. We're all, sinful. So how is it, cast the first stone? So yeah, like the point he's making, that Louis C.K. is brilliant. He's hilarious. He's a great comedian. And then he does this unseemly thing. And then he's canceled forever. So we all have to be, either you have to be perfect or all your misdeeds have to be completely in the closet. Nobody can know about it. So, that's the logic of what Peterson says, is that, listen, we all make mistakes. And then these certain mistakes can't be, they all have to be redeemable to a degree. Okay? Yes, McConaughey said. I mean, I think you're leaning on it, a lot of what we call cancel culture today. In the name of rehabilitation, we have to have a world in which we are able to grow and evolve. That's what we're trying to do. Now, I'm not for repeat offenders or tyrants, but if someone screws up and they sincerely want retribution, I think it's fair to give. I mean, it better be, Peterson said, because otherwise we're all doomed. And he's right. If there's no chance for redemption, then we're all doomed. And here's Laura again, then jumping in. Louis C.K., for the record, waited less than a year for apologizing for what he did before he came back with sets that pandered to the alt-right, bashing the Parkland shooting survivors, yet mocking gender identity, and later joking about sexually harassing women. You'll be shocked to learn that neither Peterson nor McConaughey opined on that during discussion. Because those are all jokes, Laura. Those are all jokes. He's a comedian. And he's joking about these things. Maybe you don't like it. But, lots of people don't like comedians' acts. Let's see. This seems like it's a long form. But, folks, this is where we're getting to. Matthew McConaughey. We learned that he went on Jordan Peterson's podcast. And was he flirting with somebody else? Because the whole article was about him flirting with the alt-right darlings, which Jordan Peterson, I guess, is one. Where is the other? Russell Brand? Russell Brand is like a socialist Bernie supporter. But let's see if we can find one. It says here, he was quoted as saying, so anyway, anyone, even those who most strongly may disagree with his principles and those things he said and done, which is another thing, we'll see what he does compared to what he said. No matter how much you even disagreed along the way, it's time to think about how constructive you can be, because he's our president for the next 4 years at least. So it's apparent to everybody. Matthew McConaughey is not your hardcore liberal leftist. And so that makes people mad, He's the real Captain America. I like Matthew McConaughey. Anyways, let's move on. It says there is a lot on the illiberal left that absolutely condescend, patronize, or are arrogant towards that other 50%. Oh, man. These are the things that he's getting quoted on, and the media is going to tear him apart. He's going to find out who his real friends are. Moving on, folks. What do we got next here? Oh, MyPillow. The MyPillow guy, huge Trump supporter, huge Trump lover. And this article is all about trying to cancel him, I guarantee it. So, the MyPillow people were giving a discount. The Fight for Trump discount code in its products, despite other companies trying to distance themselves from Trump. So Mike Lindell, CEO of MyPillow, has been a longtime supporter of Trump. The Fight for Trump discount code went up last Wednesday, the day the Capitol was attacked. Lindell attended a rally that Trump spoke at before the riot began. It is not clear if the Fight for Trump code was up before then. Anyways, Lindell knows who's buttering his bread, all right? The thing is, most people, when you have a product that is as universally needed as a pillow, most people don't care about the politics of the pillow maker, okay? If the pillow is great, if the pillow helps you sleep, then you're going to buy the pillow. I think that's how that works. And they've been giving Lindell all kinds of, he has a very, very intriguing redemption story on how he was addicted to drugs and smoking crack. And then he made, a self-made millionaire, right? Very religious. Oh, and they got him blaming Antifa. It wasn't Antifa. Over the past couple of years, you see those patriot prayers, and then these other Antifa events, and they constantly goad each other. So they hold dueling events of sorts, and then they fight. You have the MAGA people, the MAGA hardcore is what I call it, and then the Antifa, and they go at it. The people the majority, or not the majority, but a large amount of people who were at this fight the steal rally, peaceful protest that turned violent, are these hardcore people. They're not the average Trump supporter. There were 70 million people who voted for Trump. There's thousands of people at this rally. So it's not fair to lump them, which is what they always say, which is what they try to say about the riots all summer. Okay? It's not fair to lump it. Oh, they went out of their way to try to always describe those as peaceful protests. Okay? Oh, it was mostly peaceful, yet, dozens of buildings get burned to the ground. Right? But, I don't need to point these things out to you. Lindell, who's known for peddling the same election fraud conspiracy theories as Trump, Twitter has flagged 2 of his tweets. Listen, these are I don't have Twitter, and I never will. I think that's going to be one of the cool things. I think you could even put it on somebody's gravestone. Here lies Jamin Alaman. Father, husband, son, brother. Never had Twitter. That seems pretty cool. Anyways, the MyPillow, who's a prolific advertiser on conservative media. The thing is, this is where we're going in some of these, in our world, which is not good. And this is where we're going, and maybe even in advertising, that, listen, you pick a segment. So it's perhaps a good business decision to say, you know what, I'm just going to sell my pillows to all the Trump and conservative people. They're half the country. There's 70 million people. That's a pretty big market. And as you've seen in many of these situations, in the crazy political situation we live in, is that people, if they get attacked by the opposition, will then be uplifted by, one side or the other, right? So you've seen this, the boutique woman who gets put out of business, and then all of a sudden she has a GoFundMe and gets $500,000. This is one of, these are the things that are going on. It's when you attack these people, which you shouldn't. We should always be able to put 90% of the politics aside. And right now, it's like the opposite. It's the opposite. It's not working out, folks. We got to figure something out. Let's move along. Getting away. We were on some controversial topics. Let's get into some finance, some speculation on the Bitcoin. Bitcoin is unlike any bubble we've seen so far. Here's the thing, folks. I don't know. I've never had a Bitcoin. I don't know any people. I don't go around asking people if they have Bitcoin. Maybe I should. If you have Bitcoin and you're watching this podcast, you should email me at jaminsdaily@gmail.com. and be like, hey, Jamin, I have Bitcoin, and then explain it to me. Like, I'm sure if I wanted to buy Bitcoin, I could figure out how. But apparently, folks, there's this big bubble on the Bitcoin, and we're going to find out, because on Bloomberg it says, while the jury's still out on whether Bitcoin is a bubble, one thing is certain: it's unlike any bubble we've ever seen. Previous speculative asset inflation episodes were either a one-off, like tulip mania in the 17th century, or the boom doom cycle took many years ago, like gold. Bitcoin, by comparison, has survived 3 peak to trough drawdowns, over 80% in less than 10 years. The cryptocurrency surged past 40,000 last week to set an all-time high, and it has fallen more than 15% since then. So again, folks, cryptocurrency, which Bitcoin is probably the most popular, is this situation in which we're not going to have real money. You're going to have kind of like, this is where, remember when on Guardians of the Galaxy, where Quinn, right? Star-Lord, he's in there and he's trying to, they're trading units. They're talking about, that was 500 million units or whatever unit, it's all cryptocurrency. There's no real money. This is becoming somewhat of a thing, and I think it really is the future. It's just going to be a long, not only the adapting to it, but then the adopting it as well. Adapting and adopting, if that makes sense. Man Group, the world's biggest publicly traded hedge fund firm, compares Bitcoin to Prometheus in Greek mythology, whose liver keeps growing back every time a giant eagle pecked it out. Every time a Bitcoin bubble bursts, another grows back to replace it, Man Group's analyst wrote. This very frequency makes the Bitcoin narrative somewhat atypical relative to the great bubbles of the past. And you know why? It's because I think it's because cryptocurrency is here to stay. It's not a fad. So that's why it's always going to keep coming back. People are going to lose their asses on it. Many people are going to make a fortune, and already have. And the cryptocurrency is here to stay. It's going to happen with everything, technology, everything that we're doing. Everything's digital. The money. The thing about money and tangible money is it's hard to let it go. And so that's going to be the last thing. One of the last things to go is to go digital. Everything else has gone digital. And one of the last things is going to be real money to go digital. But it in time, it will happen, folks. So what am I? I'm like a buy. I guess I'm a buy. I'm a buy on Bitcoin. Not for me. I can't afford it, or want to try it. But if you can, I think it's not necessarily a bad bet. It's better. My investments really are relegated to sports betting. That's why I invest my money. Moving on. We got 2 more topics, folks. Tesla. Continuing on with the topic of the bubble. Like, there's this bubble within the markets. And many people think Tesla is also this bubble. And so Tesla is an oddity in the business landscape. The company's stock is so stratospheric that Elon Musk has surpassed Jeff Bezos as the world's richest person. Now we have another mind-blowing metric. At Tesla's current price-to-earnings ratio, it would take the company almost 1,600 years to make what the stock market says it's worth. So this is, Tesla would have to have this exponential growth, exponential revenue growth within that time. That's what the speculator in the market is predicting, that in the next 20, 40, 60 years is when this growth is just going to explode. So it won't take 1,600 years. But if they were just making what they're continuing to make, it would be 1,600. Which would take us to what? 3,700? Holy smokes. I think we'd be on Mars. I mean, That may work perfectly to Elon Musk's time frame for colonizing Mars. It says here, the New Statesman put up a startling comparison. In 2020, Tesla delivered almost 500,000 vehicles, yet its market capitalization shot up to 700 billion. Comparatively, General Motors delivered 2.5 million, 5 times as many vehicles in the same year, yet its market value is only 62 billion. Tesla's price to earnings ratio, a comparison of current share price to earnings, is roughly 128%, in which the industry standard is 15. Based on that ratio, it would take 1,600 years. You know, one of the things, we're going to skip on some of these. We're not going to get too much in the weeds on these at least on this one. But it seems like you look at Uber, losing money, hand over fist, billions of dollars. And it just goes to show, and it's not total loss. They're not just burning money. This investment puts people to work. Okay, there's people working, engineers working, people working for Uber, doing all kinds of different things. The drivers, for one. But everything else, the marketers, the engineers creating the technology, all that. So it's not like they're just burning money. But at the same time, it just goes to show that there's this ginormous amount of investment dollars that can just be spent on perhaps something that will never turn a profit, because it hasn't yet. And maybe it's like Amazon. Amazon did the same thing, losing money. And then all of a sudden, boom, they hit a point where it's like, now they're printing it. We'll see. Is that Tesla? Is that Uber? There's a number of them. These unicorns that they're called. Only time will tell, folks. Only time's gonna tell. I personally am wishing Elon Musk luck. I kind of like the guy. Game recognized game. I kind of like dig his vibe. This whole I'm kind of crazy, mad scientist. I'm gonna colonize Mars kind of vibe. I think it's cool. I like my musicians and people. I like them kind of weird. These people have to be. They can't be normal, because then they'd just be normal. Lastly, guys. We're 37 minutes in. We're gonna end with something I know a little bit more about, which is sports. Brady versus Breeze is NFL football this weekend, guys. And what makes this matchup very unique, really once in a lifetime, is the fact that both Tom Brady and Drew Brees are, I want to say they're 41 and 42, or I think Brady may already be 43 and Brees is almost 42. And so you see here in the article, it says it's a matchup for the ages and the aged, because these dudes are old. Brady and Brees were playing in the NFL when some of their teammates were like toddlers. Okay? It's insane. It says the NFL has never seen a playoff matchup quite like the upcoming one between Tom Brady's Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Drew Brees' New Orleans Saints. The pair of quarterbacks in their 40s still thriving on the playoff stage at an age when nearly every other great passer in NFL history was already enjoying retirement. And so you look at the stats, it really is all going to depend on who plays longer. So Brady has played 1 year longer, but you got to remember Brady missed pretty much a whole season. He got hurt, I think, in 2009 season, maybe 2008 season, and he missed the first or second game. Missed the rest of the season, so he missed the whole season. So they pretty much played almost the same amount of games. I would say Brady's obviously played more because he's been to more Super Bowls, so he's played more games. He's just barely behind in total yards. I think Breeze has 80,358, and that's Breeze, and Brady has 79,204. He's like 4 decent passing games away from topping him. And so if Brady plays next year and Breeze doesn't, Brady's going to break his record. So I have a feeling Breeze is going to try to make it back at least another year. It says this marks just the second time since at least 1950 that the NFL's top 2 players in career yard passing will meet in the playoffs. The last time that happened was second-ranked John Elway and the Denver Broncos beat then leader Dan Marino and the Dolphins 38-3 in 1998. This will be the first time since at least 1950. Okay, that they're playing. So see, again, these are epic. This is an epic battle, folks. You're not going to see. This is like some kind of celestial event that you may never see this. This only happens every 40,000, 80,000 years or something. Okay, this probably never happen again. So, when are they playing? Let's see here. I think there's 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. And I don't know what the line is. But I'm going to give you my prediction. I think they're playing in New Orleans. And I have a feeling, I'd like to see Breeze win out. Because Brady will come back next year. And he'll have another chance. I think if Drew Brees, who's a Texas boy, was to win the Super Bowl this year, he would retire. So I'm going to say the Saints win 30-27. You heard it here first, folks. So if you're making any bets, calling into your bookies, I want some credit, okay? You don't have to I don't want any money. You just give me some credit by sending me an email to jaminsdaily@gmail.com or going to Jamin's Daily. Go to YouTube, search Jamin's Daily, and then subscribe. Smash the like button. Comment. Do all those things. And then you don't forget, while you're doing that this show is brought to you by Sage Choice Insurance Agency. We sell home and auto insurance. Those are our things. That's what we do at an expert and professional level. You call us 361-400-2411. Or you can go to quotefromjamin.com. It's right there in front of you. On your phone. You can do it from your phone. Super simple. 5G forms come up. You fill it out. Boom. We get back to you. You don't have to call us. You still can. 361-400-2411. You can call us at Sage Choice Insurance Agency. We can help you. But you can always just go to quotefromjamin.com as well, folks. So, thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for joining me, Jamin, your host, here on Jamin's Daily, episode 56, on a Wednesday in January 2021. Signing off. Don't forget, stick with us because the best is yet to come.